or, we talked about reality Von Teese. Like, do you have situations where people are like copying you or just like using the martini glass or the clamshell or any of these other signature moves of
Yeah, I
yours?
mean, I say I've been on mood boards for the better part of 23 years on the mood board. So, but I had like things that there's the things that in the early 2000s, like for instance, like I did this thing with the Pussycat Dolls, right? I was a guest star in their show, and they were filming a scene in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, and they called me, the film called me and was like, hey, can we use your glass for the scene in the film? And I was like, no. I was like, no, it's not. It was like a scene with the Pussycat Dolls, and like they wanted to use my glass, and I was like, no, because like this is my number, it's not a Pussycat Dolls show number. And they were like, okay. And then strangely, I was asked like by to make a cameo in the film, and I was on set one day, and I was in like the hair and makeup trailer, and they kept going, how do we know you? You're so familiar. How do we know you? I was like, I don't know. And I was filming, like, I was in lingerie, like as me, like lounging around Demi Moore's lair. They filmed me like that, like as an accessory to her, by laying by the fire or whatever. I don't know. It was weird. Um, and all day they were like, how do we know you? And then right before I was leaving, they go, I know how we know you. We had your picture all over the wall when we were filming the scene with the big glass. And I was like, oh, you did? And I marched right up to the director and I let him have it. And I went home and actually called Hugh Hefner. I was like, what do I do? And he goes, call this attorney. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I kept the movie from coming out for a few days. They had to cut the scene to like a tiny little scene. They had to give me the glass. Because I had like a trademark on the choreo, and like the glass, the copyrights and trademarks on the glass and the choreo and all this stuff. So yeah, and it was like this whole, like, the choreography in the glass is distinctive to me and Catherine Delish. Like it's not an old timey burlesque act like some people think. They might be like, oh, been done before. It's this like idea of a dance inside the glass and the poses and the olive and the strawberry sponge. That's like, our thing. And it was easy, there's no precedence before of that being done, like in an old movie or whatever. It's not. Um, so yeah, so it was like a easy thing. So I have like a special thank you on the kind of stuff in the film, but that was one of those things that I did go after. And there were, there were things that I do go after, and then there's things that's just like, it's kind of like in this, now 22 years later, it's kind of it's everywhere, it's been imitated and copied all over the place. And so I just keep innovating and moving forward, making new glass designs and new things. And
And some things are small scale, but like the Charlie's Angels movie with Demi Moore is not a small thing. It's a big
yeah, and
thing.
it was also malicious. It was like malicious because they asked me and I said no. So
And then literally just like they didn't even realize they were saying this and they were like, we know, oh wait, we know you from that glass. Like they just
yeah,
revealed it
yeah.
around about.
And like the lawyers on, the Sony Pictures side were like, oh wow, like they knew they were all in the wrong and they were pissed, at the production. They knew that it was a malicious, like, nobody's gonna care about her, it was like that. It was that.
And then why do you call, I mean, there's worse people I could think of calling for business advice, but why do you call Hugh Hefner? Like, is he some,
I called Hef because like I had just been on the cover of Playboy, and like I was, that my pictorial was all about my shows and me in the glass and me and my feather fans and me on the carousel, like all of my signature numbers all in the pictorial. And so like he was the one, I was like, I don't know what kind of attorney, who's the attorney? And he's like, you need this attorney. And he was like an attorney that represented like the Fred Astaire estate and Vanna White. Like you can't, besides all of like trademarks of like things or people copying, there's also a thing called the right of publicity. Like you can't just confuse the public. Like I was like the girl in the martini glass, like doing this act all over the world. Like you can't just like, you can't put a blonde in a dress turning letters and try to get a Vanna White lookalike. It's not, you can't do that to people. like, yeah, you can't create confusion for people. It's not allowed.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. And was it Demi Moore in the glass because she looks like you?
It was Cameron Diaz.
Oh,
Demi Moore was like the villain, so it was kind of like separate scenes. Yeah.
interesting. I saw one of the Charlie's Angels, but I don't remember this. But I'm also thinking I saw you at Radio City Music Hall when I saw you at the
It's
Beacon. So
okay.
what do I know? You have a very good memory. And then what this attorney called and you said pay up?
Yeah, we went into like we went, we had to obviously explain everything, and, they did like due diligence about like making sure I was telling the truth about this being a distinctive choreography, and the olive sponge and the design of the glass was exact. They didn't try to change anything. They made it exactly
Wow.
and yeah, and it was like we just had a meeting with the Sony lawyers and the lawyers for the movie, and they looked at the video, they showed me the clip, they looked at me and they're like, right, okay, we'll come back at you with an offer. So they did.
Right. There's nobody I think of in burlesque with a martini glass. It's you.
Yeah, it was like there was a novelty act in this like late 60s, and you can see pictures of her and she sat there, and it's like very not to scale, and it wasn't like a dance in a glass. It was like a novelty of like a sexy girl sitting there. She didn't like do the thing of like, I'm taking off my clothes, now I'm gonna get in, now I'm gonna do these poses and a dance, essentially.
What was it like working on Don't Worry, Darling? Like that scene was one of like these scenes of that movie, like being directed by Olivia Wilde. Like, what was that experience like?
That was amazing. It was like the first thing coming out of the pandemic, like the first big thing. And I was obviously like nervous. I was, wearing the blonde wig, which, just heightened the movie, but it was really like an outrageous scene, like all of those stars of the movie all there, watching, and like just that, they really filmed it like they're like gremlins, because it's like a pivotal scene in the movie, and they're just like, um, but it was a really fun experience. When I remember like Harry Styles, like I'd met Harry Styles, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years before. I was sitting next to him at a fashion show in London. I had no idea who he was. And I was just only knew because I got all this like hate email from Harry Styles fans the day after. And I was like, I don't even know. I'm not trying to steal your man. Don't worry. But it was, he was a delight. He kept like checking and like, do you need any water or anything? I was like, I'm pretty sure if I do, there's like a dozen people to get it, but thank you for offering. Like super nice. Like everybody was really fun and nice. It was a fun experience. And I loved my most exciting part of making that movie was actually like that Libatique, who's the cinematographer, is amazing. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be like the best these Swarovski crystals have ever looked, and it does. It's like really, a lot of people like will wear, like crystallized things for the Super Bowl or whatever, and it looks like beads or whatever. But when somebody films it exactly right, like they did, it's magic, it's like, it's hard to capture what it looks like in real life. I know it's totally like, I'm obsessed with my Swarovski crystal costumes and glasses and how they look in the light. And it just was really like, that's for me, the best I've ever seen them look on camera.
Wow. And when you were at this fashion show and you just happened to sit next to him, what the Harry Styles fans were reaching out, thinking like now you were dating him and you were trying to steal their Harry?
I don't know. I was totally oblivious to that. I was just like sitting there, I was with my friend Aaron Paul, and we were sitting there front row, and I didn't know who Harry Styles was because I don't think everybody knew back then unless you were British or if you were into like the boy band thing, and I didn't know. But he was always like super lovely. But I just remember getting like